All right. That's usually when people are like, but it's really not any different than we were just talking.
Yeah.
But I just like people to know if I'm going to record you, I want you to know. So it is recording.
All right.
And then I need to.
Aw.
We feel good now. All right.
I'm good. All right.
There you go. Actually, I'm going to take a quick little screenshot.
Right.
Smile. And we're off. Welcome to Chat with Me. Tonight we have, I said tonight. I release them in the morning. This is why we record.
I mean, technically it is night.
It is, but I release them in the morning.
Oh, okay.
And people can watch it any time of the day. Okay. Welcome to Chat with Me. I am so excited to have my dear friend here with us today. Since it's Mental Health Awareness Month, we thought it would be really important for us to discuss this topic. And Miss Kaley Israels has joined us today. Thank you, Kaley.
Yeah, of course.
I'm so excited you're here. And I appreciate it. I know how difficult it is to really just come out and talk about any type of mental health issue. And anxiety is a big one. I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to, whether it's situational, whether it's something they go through in their life, or even particularly right now. But we're going to start, and I'm going to ask you, Kaley, if you could just tell me a little bit about your anxiety and when that started for you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to say it started as early as like 5 years old.
Wow.
As crazy as that is. And I didn't realize that it started that young until my mom kind of pointed it out to me, because when I was younger, I would always have stomach aches. Like that was my thing when I was nervous, is I would always have stomach aches. I'm like, Mom, I have a stomach ache. Like, I don't want to go to school. And it was like nauseous to the point, like I felt like I was going to be sick.
And it was real for you. This wasn't like a tool to try to get out of school. This was like, I am hurting. I don't know why. My stomach's hurting. Okay.
Yeah. And I was always such a nervous child. Like I was always full of nerves. And that kind of like panned, my whole life. But I want to say like it got really bad once I went to UCF, once I hit college. That was kind of really where I started to see that there was a legit problem that I was having.
I want to intervene really quick. I'm so sorry for interrupting, but that's very typical in mental health conditions at that age for symptoms to either start showing or to be exacerbated, because there's so many transitions in your life and so many things. So I'm sorry, I thought it was important to point out.
No. Yeah, absolutely. Because around the time when it started getting really bad, like I dealt with, my parents' divorce and stuff like that, which was tremendously stressful. But then I like moved out on my own around the same time. So it was all of these transitions that I had at the moment that kind of spurred a lot of the anxiety and a lot of, and I wasn't really aware of it enough. Like I was aware that there was a problem, but I wasn't sure what route to go, because some people deal with it differently.
And I think when you start having anxiety at such a young age, you start, especially when you hit college, you try to pin things to why you feel that way. Maybe this is what's happening, or maybe it was the divorce, or maybe it was, rather than just knowing like, I have anxiety. It's a physiological condition. It's something that's happening to my body, not because something happened. Something happening can certainly make it worse, or it can cause anxiety in people who don't have anxiety. But when you have anxiety, like somebody like you who's had it since 5 years old, that is something that is in you, that is a part of your physiological being. So it didn't have to be attached to a
it definitely. I think a lot of people, because I certainly was, before I knew it was a problem, I was like, well, anxiety is not a big deal. People should just get over it, because I was young and I didn't realize that was a thing until I got older. And then I was like, wow, like now I understand, because I don't think people realize how life altering it can be, and like, it's absolutely debilitating. Like there's been so many events and so many things that I haven't gone to that I've said, hey, I'm not feeling well. And like my best friend will know what that means, but a lot of people don't, because I didn't want to lie. I didn't want to be like,
and it's true. You're not feeling it. There's a reaction in your body.
Absolutely. And I would be like, oh, I'm not feeling well, because I don't like the, hey, how are you question and me having to lie and be like, yeah, I'm great. When in reality, it's like, all of this like inside is just like, oh, I'm not good, you know? And then when you're around certain people, they start to pick up on it. I have a friend who I thought I was hiding it very well from, my friend Lloyd. And then he was like, hey, are you doing okay? And I'm like, oh my gosh, he knows.
Yeah.
You know, they start to see the telltale signs of like when you're not okay and when you are. And I never wanted to be that close to people to where they could know that.
Yeah.
So I think that's what kept me like it isolates you. It definitely isolates you too.
And what does it look like for you physically? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? Tell me what your anxiety does to you.
Yeah, so I can give an example of like the worst it's been and then like the least. So the least I want to say is probably now, like day to day is it's kind of there, like in the back of my mind. I'm always worrying about something, as terrible as it sounds. Um, but it's kind of like back in my mind and I could be like, okay, like that's what I'm feeling. This is, like meditate, do whatever I need to, and then I can deal with it. But I want to say March, like 2 months ago, March was the worst it's ever been because I was driving in the car, and this is when COVID had started. And I was driving in the car, and I don't think it had clicked to me that, like, hey, this is a serious thing yet, because it was starting to be a serious thing, and because this is early March. And
I think we all sort of got it in stages. We were just like, oh, there's a
yes.
thing. And then, oh, some people are overreacting. Oh, wait, maybe we should react.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And for me, I underreacted at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I was in the car, there's this radio station I always listen to in the morning. And it's like, they're kind of comedic and stuff like that, but they have somebody come in who does like the sports stuff, and just talks about sports and updates. And he was saying how everything is shutting down now, like for the season. Everything's shutting down. Everything's like, all of this. And
It got real.
it got real. And I think in that moment, I didn't realize it at the time, but like I noticed, and it was very quick. It was like within like a couple minutes, maybe seconds, like, cause I can't really pinpoint when it was, but it was very quick. I felt like the dread, like come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm getting chills talking about it, cause I was just such a crazy thing, like, and I got nauseous, like really nauseous. Like I have the flu, about to like throw up, nauseous. And then I noticed like my breathing was like getting really like shallow. And then like I like had to take, like my heart rate was like very fast. And then when I came into work, my boss knew. I was like, hey, I don't feel well. I don't know. And I remember calling my mom, because I had never felt like that bad.
Having a panic attack.
Yeah. And she was like, I was like, I think, like I don't feel well, blah, blah. And she's like, okay, like give it a couple minutes, and I actually like threw up, like at work, straight up. Like my coworker was like, here's some water. Like I'm not, because they were like, oh my God, this girl just threw it. Yeah. And like, I actually had to get like my mom to come get me, because she lives like right around the corner. And she was like, you don't have the flu. She's like, I think you had a panic. And I was like, there's no way it's that bad. And she's like, no, like look at you, like you're fine. Like you threw up once, like you're good. That's it. Like, and I think that was at the point where I was like, okay, maybe I should like talk to somebody. Like maybe, not just counseling, because I've been in counseling about 6 months now. But to me, it got serious enough to where I felt that I might need to look into like some kind of medication at some point.
Okay.
Like just because I wasn't dealing with it in a way that like I could function daily, because that was the tipping point. Like, oh my gosh, like that just affected my life in a full day of work,
I'm really glad that you shared that, because I think it's so important for people to know that if you do experience anxiety, whether it's situational or you've had it long term, knowing yourself so well, that knowing the difference in your body, in your thoughts, and those differences, to say, okay, now I need some intervention. Now I need some help, whether it be counseling, like you said, or medication, or whatever that is so individualized, that is so up to you and your doctor or your therapist, whomever you speak to. But it's so important to know yourself. And that's great that you knew that. And you said, this is it. This is my line. This is where it's drawn. I need additional support. And you reached out. And I think that's great, Kaley.
Yeah. It was, thank you for that. And I think that's what people don't get is like, I can't say, hey, go get medication for that, because that's not the person I am. And like, B, it's anxiety is so different for each person. And I
Right.
feel like that's, my friend has it too. Like my friend deals with anxiety as well. And like, he doesn't take medication for it. And he isolates a little bit, but it's not to a point, I think, where like he takes medication for it or anything like that. And that's the thing, is some people can cope with it and some people can't. And I was just one person that I couldn't cope with it at the time. And this was, it's weird. I'm talking about it like it was so long ago, but it was literally a month or two ago. And it's just
Has
crazy
that
because
treatment helped you? Has that treatment been good for you?
yeah. So it's very weird, like, because they tell you when you first start taking it, just for people that don't know how like medication with that works, sometimes you're on medication that takes a couple weeks of you taking it for it to build up in because you're basically rewiring your brain. Now, I'm not a medical specialist, but I do know that there's certain interesting things that happen with your brain all day. I noticed mine's worse in the morning. And I told my counselor that. I was like, why is it so bad in the morning? And she said, well, did you know your serotonin levels are higher? And I was like, I didn't know that, you know?
Now
And
I know.
yeah, and so when I started taking it, I didn't feel anything at first because I was like, all right, this is normal, whatever. And then it was like all of a sudden, instead of the anxiety being all here, it was back here.
Oh,
And I'm like, that's weird, because like
where
I'm like, where like,
where'd you go?
like, where did it go? Like it's still present, like
Yeah.
I still feel it, but the severity is slightly less. I still can have anxiety attacks and stuff,
Mhm.
but it's to a point where I can use what I took from counseling right now, and can use certain
Yeah.
things to cope with it. And it's not something that I have to stay home all day, or I get physically ill, or like, like I'm still anxious. Like I'm anxious right now, like, but
Yeah, but
it's
prior to this, you may not having those tools through therapy and not having the medication, you might not even have been able to do this interview.
no, yeah, no, like it was definitely probably to a point where I might not be comfortable talking about it, or I could have, but
Mm.
I think anxiety is so different for each person. And for me, it's been a struggle. And like, I wish I could have told my friends the truth and been like, hey, this is a thing. I told some people, I was like, hey, I won't be around for a while, and my one friend was like, okay, come back when you're ready. Like didn't ask any questions, but I wanted to have the time to work on myself and work on that, because it is debilitating. It's life changing. It's definitely changing.
And that's, it's so important with any mental health condition to know that what we're talking about is a snapshot from one person who's experienced
Hmm.
one type of anxiety. It's so different for everybody else. And I appreciate you so much for being so brave and for coming out here and talking about it. But this is why it's so important to talk about it, so that people are comfortable telling their friends, hey, you know what? I'm feeling anxious right now. I can't go because it would be just too much for me. It would be very overwhelming. And that should be okay. Or you should, or you don't have to tell them, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But I think if we talked enough about mental health conditions and made it so that that stigma wasn't so nasty, and it's just something that we deal with, just like I have celiac disease. Nobody judges me for that. Well, some people do. I'm just teasing. Um, so why would we judge somebody who has a mental health condition? And
Yeah.
I just appreciate you so much for coming out and talking to me about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing that a lot of people benefit too is if somebody tells you, hey, I'm not feeling well, and they're like, hey, my mental health is like not really good. I think a lot of friends are like, no, you should come out anyway. Like, don't stay home, And sometimes you have to put the boundary within yourself to be like, hey, I can push myself a little to do this, or I need to stay home and take care of myself. A great one of our friends told us, don't, if when you're sick and you stay home when you're sick physically, no one questions that.
Yeah.
So if you're sick, with your brain mentally, why should we question that?
Right. Why isn't that enough?
Yeah. So I definitely think more mental health awareness, especially during COVID, everybody should take care of themselves and, do the work for themselves, because everybody deserves to live an anxious free life.
Yeah.
So
I
for
love
sure.
I love that. Thank you, Kaley. Thank you so much. And if you're
Yeah.
out there and you're watching and you are feeling anxious and you feel like you need additional support, I'm going to put some resources for you attached to this, probably in the comment section of the interview. And do not be afraid to reach out and ask for some support because there's a lot of help out there.
Mhm.
Again, thank you, Kaley. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for your honesty and for coming on and talking about your anxiety.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. And thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, take care of yourselves and don't forget to take care of each other. Okay, let me hit stop.